All right, what up, what up? We got another video today. This one is going to be talking about how the government should be run, right? So a lot of people have issues with the voting process, whether or not it's fair, whether or not it's rigged, things like this. A lot of people don't rock with their government officials for whatever reason, like should there be career politicians? Should there be people that have this opportunity to be corrupted, and the whole thing with government officials like investing and stuff like this, right? So I'm going to answer all these questions with a very simple idea, and I'm going to show you how we can fix our government, right? So the issue with our government is that we have a voting system, right? So the idea is that, well, if enough people want something to happen, then it should be able to happen because, they vote in officials that'll vote for them and such, and then we're all good. But I'm here to say that that is not how it should work, okay? The way that government officials should be put into office should be completely by chance. Right, so the idea, right? You don't want fringe beliefs dictating your country. So the way that we check that now is that you have people saying, "Oh, well, you have to vote. So clearly, if you don't have enough votes, you're not going to be able to get that person in." But it's very easy to lie, right? It's very easy to say that you'll do something and say, "Oh, I'll look out for these people, or I'll do this and I'll do that," and then the politicians never do it. Right, so you're never really voting for what you think you're voting for. They're just saying what they need to be able to get in office, and they're going to do what their funders tell them to do. Basically, how I think it should be is just everybody's got a number, and every couple years you just get up there and just draw numbers like a lottery, and that's who that's the president. And then you draw another one for the vice president. You just keep on going. You draw them for Secretary of State and all the congressmen and everything. And then, there it is, man. And so now you got a bunch of random people. And now I understand that there's going to be a lot of issues with this, right? People saying, "Oh, well, what happens if they are, not the best people? Or what happens if they refuse to do the job?" That's just how life goes. Like, would that not be more fun? What happens if you get a president that just doesn't show up? Like, this guy is the president, and then he just never goes in. We just don't have a president for a couple years. That would be a lot more whimsical, a lot more interesting, right? We'd have a lot more exciting of a day to day without having to, "Oh, this guy's the president for this many years, and oh, the media's telling me this about how I should feel about him and such." No, it's random. "Oh, there's no female president. There's no female." Well, now there is 50-50 chance, basically. You know what I mean? "Oh, everybody's too old." Now your president is 12. You have a 12-year-old girl running the United States. Problem solved, And so we're getting more, we're whimsy maxing. There's not enough whimsy in the government right now. And there's so much corruption, and it's so easy to have these people trying to shove these lies down your throat, trying to make you believe that they're going to be looking after a certain group or whatever, when they're really not, right? But if it's all random, then it really is a good measurement of the people. You think, "Oh, there's the vote. Not everybody votes, right? So if not everybody votes, then surely it's not gonna the voting is not gonna be representative of the American people. It's gonna be representative of the voters, right? And so people, you try to get people out to vote and make your voice heard, but nobody's going to, because your vote doesn't matter. Nobody cares. However, right, if you are randomly sampling a person to do the job, then you actually, that is actually a random, that is gonna, in probability, tell you what the American people want. Maybe you might get a dude that's, super racist. Maybe you do. But you could also get a dude that's super not racist. Or maybe a little bit of racist, or maybe you have a guy that is from Tennessee. He lives up in the mountains, and he just doesn't really want to go to DC. So he just doesn't show up to work. Maybe you have a super corrupt banker that ends up getting the draw, and then he goes and like kind of screws the country. Like, these are all opportunities. Right now, we don't have opportunities. Right now, we are stuck with the exact same people. All of the government officials all want the exact same thing. They want power, and then they're going to be funneling that power to the people with money, right? There's no diversity. There's no vibrance, right? You don't go to the rainforest and get upset that there's dangerous creatures. I'm not going to Africa and going on the savannah and seeing a hippo or a cheetah or something, and I'm upset. Well, okay, maybe it's dangerous. Maybe I don't want to be next to a hippo, but hippos are cool. Maybe I don't want to be interacting with alligators, but they're cool to look at. So you have to keep in mind that when we're just saying, oh, we have to, vote in, you do the electoral college and whatever, you're limiting yourself. You're not having any biodiversity in the climate of the government. What we should be doing is randomly selecting people to go do that job. So now that arises the question even further, how big of a role does that person play? How long is their term? Do we keep the same representative? I don't think that we need Congress anymore, because Congress is supposed to represent states. You know what I mean? Like, you have the House of Representatives that's giving more to different states. But now, I mean, I'm not saying that anybody's going to come from Wyoming. You might never have a congressman from Wyoming for 30 years because it's so small. You might just be having people from California, Texas, and stuff like this. So I don't think that we need this congressional system anymore. I think that what we should do instead is just get 100 people. No president. So I don't believe that there should be a president. There should be 100 people, and they make all the rules. They do whatever they want, right? No constitution, because the Constitution is then going to be giving. You have to follow these rules that aren't your people's. There's no reason that we should be following a constitution written by people that aren't alive now, because they're governing us from the grave. That's not how government should work. You should be governing yourselves. So you don't have a constitution. What you do is you just have those 100 people make the rules, and maybe every person gets swapped out. Every 2 years, maybe even 1 year. Every year on January 1st, you run the lottery and you just see who's the new government people. Because now you want to have these terms because, if you just give him a year, he's not going to be able to get anything done because, he's got to go and there's all this red tape. No more red tape. No more red tape. I mean, one of your 100 people could be a drunk from Michigan, and another one of your 100 people could be a 45-year-old ginger. Like, gingers could be in the government, man. Like, you're not thinking about the possibilities here. You could have a gamer girl as one of the 100 rulers, right? These are interesting things to keep in mind. Now, so we've talked about the term limits, right? We've talked about how many people there should be, but what should they be able to do, right? If there's a constitution, then they can kind of just do whatever they want, right? And I would say, correct. But how do they actually enact this, right? Is there a police system? Is there a CIA, FBI? Like, there's got to be somebody doing career things so that they can stay past just like a year or so. To really understand what I'm talking about, you're going to have to know something about the law of large numbers. Basically, what this says is that if you take an average of a bunch of random things, as you take more and more of them and you average them, you're going to be getting closer to the mean of these random things, right? So the idea is that if we've got all these people, right, over enough years, and we keep on doing this random selection of government officials, you're going to kind of just get what the American population wants, right? At this point, nobody likes the government officials. Everybody, on both sides, everybody's talking about how they don't trust them, and politicians lie, and they don't like them, and whatever. But nobody has the balls to actually go change anything about it. So what I'm saying is that if we were to do this, if we were to make the selection process random, then you actually would, for real, have fairness in that system. We would have fairness in the unfairness of it being random. So I would urge you all, type down in the comments, tell me if you have any ideas on how to maybe improve this, if you have any questions about it, and let me know if there's anything that you think would improve the efficiency of such an idea, right? How could we implement it better? Maybe instead of using like paper in like the lottery, right? Instead of, maybe we don't pick numbers out of a hat, but we could do like a computer algorithm. Maybe everybody could, everybody has a house, right? Or maybe not homeless people, but maybe homeless people aren't allowed to be president. Maybe that could be where we draw the line. At least not the homeless people on Hillsborough. But I think that you could just send a bird, maybe an ostrich. Perhaps you could send an ostrich out into America, or 100 ostriches, and then just whichever ostrich, kind of wherever it ends up. If it, whoever's house it ends up at or whatever, then that's the person, that's the next, government official. I guess then, this is all fine and dandy, and I think that this is pretty much a perfect plan. But the issue becomes, what do we call the government officials? They're not congressmen, it's not the president or I don't know what we would call them. And so I think that is my greatest flaw in this plan, is that I don't know what the names would be. But feel free, go down in the comment section, drop what you think that we should call these new government officials. And I hope that you guys have really enjoyed this video. I hope that you've enjoyed my idea on how we can fix the American country. And I hope that you guys can all agree enough to maybe, get a petition signing, or we could go lobby, we could campaign, things like this, just to really get our point across and let the people in power know that we want randomness, because randomness will save us. Thank you so much.